Hello, welcome to episode 2 of my improvised essays, the driving podcast. This is Lenny, aka Tribrix, and today we are going to talk about expanding the myth. But first we'll do a little bit of house cleaning. So in the previous episode, and if you haven't watched the previous episode, please go back and watch the previous episode, because these are going to build on each other in the sense that, I will make clarifications or expand on ideas in the previous episode whenever that's called for. So it could be useful to watch them in order. Obviously, nobody's going to force you to watch them in order, but it might be better. So in the previous episode, talking about suicide, I left out a very important part of the story of Wendy. And I'm kind of surprised that I forgot. But I forgot because these are done without scripts or notes, because I'm driving a car while I'm delivering them. So occasionally this may happen where something completely slips my mind because I'm not actually looking at any visual reference to remember to do everything I meant to do. So in the story of Wendy, a very important fact that I forgot was something she revealed to me on the night that Michael Hutchins died, November 22nd, 1997, which was that, according to her, and I have no way then or now of verifying whether it's true, she was supposed to be on the tour with them, but had overslept and missed her plane. Now, I only met Wendy twice in my whole life, but she is totally the kind of person who would oversleep and miss her plane. So I believe that part of the story. I just don't know if it's true that she was supposed to be on tour with them or not. But here's the kicker. She believed it, at least when she was speaking to me, and it made her feel guilty on top of feeling the loss of this man that she admired so much, because she felt like if she had been there, maybe things would have turned out differently. I don't know, but that's how she felt. And it's an important fact that I forgot to mention last time, and I apologize. So, on with this episode. What have I been watching? I have been watching Rain Man, which I believe is from the year 1988, could be 86 or 7, somewhere in there, the mid to late 80s. And I was watching the commentary with the director, and he was able to answer a question I've always had, which is, why does a movie about two white guys have an African soundtrack? That had always kind of bugged me. And I thought his explanation was pretty good, that, Dustin Hoffman's character, this Raymond, autistic guy, he's kind of like a foreigner in his own land because he can't really connect to other human beings. And so having this kind of soundtrack that doesn't necessarily match the visuals is kind of to give you musical cues from Raymond's point of view. I'm sure he just liked the music on some level and wanted to use it. But on the other hand, it kind of makes sense, The music in Rain Man never bothered me. I just always thought it was weird that you had African music in a movie about two white guys. Be that as it may. What I've been listening to, I've been listening to 3 records by the Police, which I recently committed to tape. That is, in order, Zenyatta Mandata, Ghost in the Machine, and Synchronicity. And really, really enjoying these albums. They were a gift from a friend of mine over around Christmas time. And they weren't new. They were his old original copies from the early 80s. But they sound better than new, I kid you not. They're amazing. But anyway, so wish you could join me in listening, but alas, that's not possible. So let's move on with the subject at hand, expanding the myth. So what do I mean by expanding the myth? Probably one of the most common examples that many of you will be familiar with is The Wizard of Oz. The book and the film have some differences, and in some ways the film expands on the book in interesting ways. For example, making the entire story into a dream filled with, people that she knew from Kansas, but inserting them into roles in Oz, I think was really interesting and cool. But it's not in the book. It's kind of expanding the mythology of The Wizard of Oz to have it be a dream. I'm not sure why the filmmakers did it. Obviously, another thing they did was make Oz in color and Kansas in black and white. Now, that definitely wasn't in the book. As I recall, the entire book was in black and white. Ha ha ha, just kidding. But, that was another nice little touch that, again, had nothing to do with the words in the book, but it was interesting. Another example is in Frank Herbert's Dune. There's the inclusion of these sound weapons called weirding modules. I don't think they were present in the book at all. And then another interesting thing in the 1984 David Lynch film version of Dune, which is not in the book, is a scene very early on when a fourth stage navigator comes to visit the Emperor and express his displeasure, let's put it. And this scene is incredible because you really get to see the balance of power in this fictional world play out. Because you have the Emperor, who you think is in charge, but he's actually very nervous in the face of this guild navigator. And why is that? Because the guild navigators hold the strings of the economy in their hands, Nothing gets traded without transportation, and nothing can get transported between the planets without the navigators. So in a sense, their power trumps the Emperor's power, and he knows it. And the scene just makes it so clear. It's really, really well done. Kudos to Dino De Laurentiis and David Lynch for that one, because I don't remember such a scene in the book. Not to say it's not there, but I don't remember reading that scene. But the main expanding the myth idea that I wanted to discuss today is the 1976 film of the book Logan's Run, based on the novel by, I forget the author's name. It'll be in the notes down below. Again, I do this without notes or a script, so sometimes I forget these things. But in case you haven't seen the film or read the book, I'll give you the basic premise that applies to both. In the future, everyone is young, and everyone is young because they die at a predetermined age, not of natural causes, but let's say at the behest of the state, because the method of death does differ between the two stories. The forced death is enforced by policemen called Sandmen, and the title character Logan is such a Sandman. So basically, if somebody decides they want to elude their predetermined day of death, they decide to run to stay alive, and Logan's job is to find and kill runners. And his best friend is a guy named Francis, and this is their job. They enjoy it, and everything in this future society is controlled by a computer, a central computer. All food production, births, deaths, everything is run by the computer. And one day the computer decides that there are a lot of unaccounted for runners, and so the computer wants Logan to go and investigate where these runners are. And so the computer sends Logan on this mission to be a runner and to find where these runners are. So he networks with some other runners and pretends to join the run, so to speak. Now, the computer does not tell any of Logan's fellow Sandmen, including his best friend Francis, that this is what is happening. So Francis believes Logan to be a runner and spends the entire film chasing him, trying to kill him. So that's pretty much where the film and book have quite a lot of similarities. Those of you who've read the book will know that, that's not entirely accurate, but anyway, we'll just say that's close enough for the purpose of this conversation. Now, where the book and the film diverge, to me, is something really interesting, because in the book, everyone is meant to kill themselves voluntarily at the age of 21. This was because there was a youth revolution against the old people. The young people said, we are sick of fighting and dying in the wars of old people. And so instead of fighting each other, we're going to fight you, that is the generals and politicians who start the wars, and we're going to eliminate you from the equation. The problem with a youth revolution is that young people get old. And so the leader of this youth revolution, on the occasion of his 21st birthday, took his life and said everybody in the world should do the same. And so that began the cycle of no one in their society being over 21 years old. Now contrast that with the film, where on the event of your 30th birthday, and 30th because they were afraid they couldn't find enough actors 21 and under to fill all the roles, so they changed it to 30, no big deal. Instead of committing suicide, you are meant to attend an event called Carousel. And instead of killing yourself, the people for whom it is their 30th birthday go into the center of this arena, and this force field comes down and it lifts them in the air, and then a laser up above shoots the people into a fiery demise, to the thrill of the onlooking crowd. Now, obviously for the purposes of a film, that's much more interesting than people taking some sleeping pills. But that's not really what makes Carousel so much more interesting than the method of death in the book. The computer has presented the possibility with Carousel that you will not die, that you will in fact be renewed and be allowed to live longer. Now, it's never made clear in the movie what that means. Like, would you get another 30 years? Would you get 5 more years? It's never explained, which I thought was kind of a tiny little bit of a hole in the concept of Carousel. But the whole idea, though, that you still have hope after you turn 30, and that there's a chance you might live. To me, it really changes the dynamic of the society. In the society of the book, when you turn 21, you either commit suicide or you run. That's it. So if you're playing by the rules, you have no hope of any future life. And in the premise of the film, at the age of 30, you have the possibility of living longer, even if you play by the rules. And to me, this is a very significant difference. And the best part of it is the computer's lying. Like, nobody actually gets renewed. Nobody is spared the fiery death. So it's, at the same time, it's like holding out hope. It's even more cynical in a way, and makes the machine seem even more malevolent, that, it's teasing the populace this way. And I think it's a fantastic addition to the mythology of Logan's Run. What is interesting to me is that I think that the 1976 film has a lot of flaws. I mean, despite the addition of Carousel, which I thought was cool and interesting, the chase between Francis and Logan in the book, it goes all over the globe. They traverse America and Europe and the Arctic and Russia. Like, this is a planet-wide chase. And in the film, it is centered around the city. Like, you get different kind of set pieces of, aquatic and frozen, and, they hit some of the same notes as the book. But you can't watch the movie and think that they've gone all over the planet, because, they are able to walk back to their origin point, or swim back, as I remember, suggesting that it all takes place in a very localized area. And so it's my sincerest hope that someday this book will be remade into a film that perhaps hews a little closer to the book, so we would have this global chase. Because as I was reading the book, I thought that was the coolest thing. They're chasing each other across oceans and continents, and it seemed like Francis seemed even more relentless, like chasing him all over the planet, as it were. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that we will get that film someday, with a bigger budget than the 1976 production starring Michael York. But I want them to include Carousel, even if they hew closer to the book. Because I think Carousel was a really cool concept, and I love that the machine was lying to the populace this way. So while I hope for a remake that hews closer to the book, I also want this thing that they did just for the film as well. And I really hope they keep the ending from the book, because the ending from the book is so much better than the ending from the film. And I'm not going to spoil it, of course. But if you've read Brave New World, I will say that it's more like Brave New World than the end of Logan's Run 1976, starring Michael York. Which I do recommend you watch the film. It's not a great film by any stretch. I liked it because the first time I saw it when I was 9, it made me think so much. And, anything that gets a 9-year-old thinking can't be too bad, right? So, thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a good week, and hopefully I'll catch you again next Wednesday. Take care. Bye.